All right, welcome to Exceptional Circumstances for Exceptional Learners. I am your host, Rebecca Muller. Super excited to be here today. I'm coming to you after a pretty relaxing spring break. That was kind of nice. I got to slow down just a little bit. And I think it's just a really good time to have Emily here with us today to speak about essential self-care for a balanced school year. So Emily was a teacher who kind of recognized a little bit ago that there's not much balance in a teacher's life. And what can we do about it, right? There's always a lot of problems. There's always a lot of things that we have to deal with. But I think finding that balance and figuring out that your health and your personal life, all of that matters. And behind me today, I have Happy Teachers Change the World. If you haven't had a chance to check out that book, it's fantastic. And I think it really kind of lends into what we're going to be talking about tonight. So Emily, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here. I actually started to follow her right around the time where I started to go into panic mode around this time last year of feeling like, what is happening in COVID world, and it's just really exciting to have you here tonight. So it kind of gives a full picture to the journey of what this year has been. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me here, Rebecca. I really appreciate it. I'm very excited to chat about self-care. It's exactly as you said, it's not always something that is talked about for teachers. And I think especially within this year, it's more important than ever to make sure that there is some of that those boundaries being created. There's so many different challenges just with the technology and working from home that a lot of teachers are still doing, and then newness that has set everyone's routines, flipped it over onto its head. So it's really important to I just really welcome this opportunity to come back and focus on, okay, well, what do we need within this year in order to feel happy and healthy and feel like this career is sustainable? So I'm happy to talk about that today.
Yeah, sustainable. That's been a big word that has been popping up a lot. And I think when we think sustainable, we think, green living and environment, the environment. But I also think that like having a schedule, having routines that you can actually keep up with. And I think that as a teacher, we have a tendency, just in the type of person that decides, I'm going to teach kids, we have this tendency to take everything on and just say like, all right, and I'm going to work out and I'm going to take care of my own kids and the kids in the classroom, and I'm going to be on a committee. And it just gets to a certain point where it's not sustainable. You can't keep going. And I think that this year, with the added just stress overall, it wasn't just about your individual stressors of what was going on in your personal life or within your family or dealing with a sick child. It was that, and then it was the whole world. The
Yeah.
whole world.
Right.
And it wasn't just COVID, it was the racial divides, it was the elections, it was all of this other stuff that was just in our environment. And that stress, that continued stress, it's not sustainable. So I'm excited that you brought that word up. But yeah, so tell me a little bit about how you got here, what your journey was like as a teacher, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, great. So I am a health coach for teachers, I guess, first and foremost. I run my business that has just gone through a little change. So it was called The Whole Adventure Health Coaching for Teachers. It is now called the Teacher Wellness Center. So I'm very excited about that little rebrand going on. And really, what my goal each and every day is to inspire, encourage, and support teachers to make space for their needs during the school year, help teachers lower stress, and really, yeah, just make sure that their needs stay a part of the mix, even when the school year gets really busy and all of those demands start to be made of you. I was a teacher myself for 3 years, and in that time, like starting out as a teacher, I learned really quickly that it can be a very stressful job, and nobody really teaches you how to deal with that stress or how to create those boundaries along the way. Um, and it really ended up taking a toll. And one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about what I do and about helping teachers to lower stress and manage stress during the school year is because even the like base level symptoms of stress that everybody knows about, whether it's, getting cranky, or it affects your sleep, or maybe it might kind of affect your digestion a little bit, or you feel a little bit more anxious. Like those are like the base level symptoms of living under stress, just a couple of them. Um, when you live with that for months and months and months out of your year, and it really starts to impact your life. And those are just the base level symptoms of stress. We're not even talking about the other like negative health impacts, mental and physical health impacts of stress that can get really bad. And so like for me, I just experienced those base level stress. I was definitely a stress eater, which is very common. I was somebody who at the end of the school day would just like totally crash. I didn't want to see anybody. That's something else that's very common symptom of stress. But again, over months and months, it was just like my relationships were a mess. I had gained weight from the stress eating, all of this stuff. And that, affected my self-esteem. So it really has a really big impact on your life. And from my time teaching and now working with my clients, I know for a fact that I was not alone, that I'm not alone in this. So it is wonderful to be able to give these skills and resources to teachers to help them manage stress during the school year so that they don't have to feel that way or deal with those symptoms during the year.
Absolutely. And I am here as a person that is dealing with all of that. Um, because, I take on a lot because I really do think that we can make a difference for students. Special education in its own right just has its own stress. Each kid is different, each case, each parent, the families. Um, and, it really has impacted me in a big way. I feel like when Emily and I first talked, I was like, I need this and I want everybody else to hear the message and to make sure that they are realizing that they're not alone. I
Mhm.
literally, especially since I'm on camera now with the show every week, I'm like, oh, yep, I'm continuing to gain weight because what do? I work until 9 o'clock at night. I'm not having dinner until about then. Got to get my son to bed, and I've put everything else before myself because
Mhm.
I in my head it's for the greater good. It's for everybody else. And it's taken me a long time to really realize that if I'm not okay, none of this exists. No one is getting a message of wellness. And I feel like it's really hard. It's really hard to manage that um, when you do feel like you have so much to give, but
Mhm.
it's that whole idea of like, you can't pour from an empty cup. And I have heard so many educators say, like, I'm at the point where I just want to leave the district or leave the profession. So now, do you have your own business? What do you do within the education realm? Because you've been doing it for so long, right?
Mhm.
And you're going to end up losing the really passionate, the ones that give the
Mhm.
100%. You're going to start to lose them. And that has a negative impact on everybody because now the
Yeah.
kids are not in getting the teacher that is and going to make sure that their mental health is well too. But it
Right.
takes us to be whole for us to give to them. And it definitely has to be like there's mindfulness and there's this and that, but I feel like it needs to be more directed and more not just an extracurricular, but a
Mhm.
part. of the job.
Mhm.
And that's where you come in with everything, with your skills and what you are and doing. So about how long ago was that shift for you?
That shift was about 3 years ago now that
Okay.
I started shifting over towards health coaching and working with teachers. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And
was
I
that a
would
scary jump? Was that
Oh yeah. I mean, any jump is
yeah.
scary, right? But it's kind of I think when the passion is there, then like, you know, the scary jumps are worth it in the end, and really it makes I am just so happy that I can, you know, keep working with teachers. Like I love education and I'm passionate about I am as passionate as hearing you talk about serving your students. I feel as passionately about serving my teachers, because every teacher I work with, it's the same energy that you're giving off, as they just want to give to the students, give to the students, give to the students. And so I just like to be present as a voice for both them, to say like your needs matter too, but also just to be a voice in general to administrators and to, you know, um, people on top, to say like, hey, your teachers, like I try to do that through my page too, of saying like teachers needs matter just as much as the students needs matter. During this time, the teacher's mental and physical health matters just like the students mental and physical health matters. Students can't learn when they are under pressure, or they are, you know, feeling uncomfortable in their bodies or in their minds. And teachers can't teach effectively when they are feeling uncomfortable in their bodies and minds. So anyway,
Absolutely.
I get passionate on
No,
that
I
front.
love it. I love it so much.
um, but I think it's important to mention, I think already a couple of times, like I use the term self-care, and it's in the title of this talk. But I do like to acknowledge that self-care is a really recognizable term right now. I don't think that it should, all of the responsibility should be put on the teachers to say, if you just do that workout at the end of the day, if you would just do that, then you'd feel great. That's like not like half of what self-care is to me, if not more, is that boundaries piece and saying no to certain things and figuring out what those priorities are. And then the other piece would be fitting in those routines that make you feel good. But it is a systemic issue, how much is getting put on teachers and asked of teachers. And I just want to acknowledge that I do talk about self-care, what you can do as an individual, but that's definitely only a piece of the problem. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, our BIPOC population. The teachers are feeling everything that we're feeling and more.
Mhm.
And I often find that we skirt around tough things because nobody really knows the right answers, but it's not about having the right or wrong answer. It's about this process, that it's ongoing. There's no one magic wand. We're all healed. It is
Mhm.
a constant process, and you need to create the time and the space to allow it.
Mhm.
And I think that is something that, our society, I think, rewards that. um, if you're really productive, what are you producing? What does it look like? We have to have a really long list of the volunteer list of what we're going to do. And that is the thing that gives us our self-worth. And it's not. And
Mhm.
that's something that I really personally have really struggled with, because I have always been like, I want to be involved. This is exciting. And in order to maintain that in stressful environments, if I don't step back, there isn't going to be a 5-year, 10-year plan. It's going to be no matter what I'm doing,
Right.
I'm going to be sleeping. I'm going to be, not healthy or missing things for doctor's appointments. And right here I had to take a couple of things off of my board today, and one of them is for blood work that I haven't gone to do yet because I haven't made time for it.
Mm-hmm.
And teachers, especially, like our health, we need to take care of those things between the hours of 4 and 6 if your doctor has that available, or
Mm-hmm.
in the morning, which a lot of them don't. And so there's a lot of things that are just in the system where, especially this year, we were actually told, like, try not to use your sick days if you
Mm-hmm.
can avoid it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, this is probably the year where we all
We
needed
need
to
it the
use
most.
them.
Yeah, right.
But because it was so hard to cover classes, and we're worried about the learning loss, so there's a lot of mixed messages too.
Yeah.
So I guess, what are some of the themes that you've seen from some of the people that you coach,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just kind of, what has been, maybe I'm trying to think, like, what the theme has been post or pre and then post kind of this past year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a couple that I wanted to share, particularly. Whoa, so one of them that I've noticed really common right now, big themes are uncertainty during this school year. There's just been a lot of changes that have happened, switching from virtual or partly virtual to in person, and then but you're still doing virtual. So there's just been a lot of uncertainty with what
Hmm.
the next day is going to look at, and that has been a really big cause of stress. um, Another one has been boundaries, what boundaries look like when we're working with so much tech, so much technology, and also boundaries when you're teaching at home. And then another really big one, just across the board, has been emotional exhaustion. As you were saying earlier, this whole past year has just been extremely emotional, just on a global level. But then, of course, the impacts of that on different students that are coming in and out of your classroom, like, everyone has had a lot of stuff going on. And so if you're a teacher, and especially if you're someone who tends to pick up a lot on other people's emotions, that can be a lot to take on within a classroom when so many people are going through so much. And then, you have your own personal emotional things happening as well this year. So that's definitely been a big theme as well. Um, Causes of stress in the past, it's not that those haven't been there before in the past. There's still definitely boundaries, talking through ways to say no, in a way, basically practicing that skill of saying no to things that aren't your priority, and really just kind of figuring out the time management piece of it all. And that's a really big focus in my coaching, is time management on the side of getting the work done in less time, focusing on the things that are important, cutting out the things that don't need to be your priority, and kind of figuring out which is which, like, what are the extra things that don't really need to be there, so that you do have space for other important areas of your life outside of school. And again, I
Absolutely.
use the term self-care, but self-care can be your relationships with other people. It can be different, your education, so things you want to learn outside of school. So it's all these different things, these different important parts of your life. Are we making time for that during the school year as well? So that's like a really big focus within coaching generally, but during the pandemic, I would say it is mostly that uncertainty piece has been coming up a lot. Emotional exhaustion has been coming up a lot. And then we've been talking about figuring out those boundaries, while working from home and just with technology in general.
Yeah, I read recently that, like, we are not wired to be wired all the time. And we
Yeah.
literally, between all of the social media and all the different ways, like, it is, if you don't turn off the notifications, like, your brain is constantly listening for that buzz or that, or the beep, or to try to be on there. And
Mm-hmm.
this past year, because I was so afraid to miss information or to have something. I don't know, like there was such this desire to, because of the uncertainty, to like gather as much as I possibly could, that I would literally be on a webinar on this ear, watching and something on my computer, trying to do and something else on my phone while my son climbed on my head. And I would be like trying to manage because I didn't want to miss information that was important. And I was doing that for a while of just multitasking. And it comes up every now and then still. Because I'm very excited about, there is such potential for change, right? There is so much that we could be doing. And I'm so, I don't want to say fearful, but if we just go back and keep doing it the way that we were, why did we go through all of this stress, right? So like we've learned so much, but once again, we don't take the time to process what we've actually learned to make the changes systematically. And I truly think that until we learn how to do it individually, that system won't change.
Right.
Because if we can't do that for ourselves, and so, I really think that, organizations like yourself, and to have that be a priority, it's more essential than it's ever been. I have a really good friend who is creating an amazing space for mental health professionals, because they're dealing with everybody else's stuff and then they have to do something with that themselves, and just the empowerment that they've been able to give one another. They actually just got back from a retreat. They had it all, they went to a retreat. They got to do all of that healing work. And if you bring that up to a teacher group, they're going to laugh like, we don't get sick days, or there's no vacation time to go to, somewhere in the spring. Like, that's just not a part of the culture, right? In other businesses, if you have a really productive year, you get a cruise, or you get some sort of incentive for doing a great job. And I wonder, teaching is primarily, and has been for a while, a woman's job. As we're talking, I'm thinking about all of the things that we're saying and how linked to motherhood and the responsibilities of women, that we just have to kind of grin and bear it. And I think that teaching and this whole mental health and the wellness, it goes further, right? Like, it's really, the empowerment is not just in the teaching world, but it's for women too.
Yes. Yeah.
And not to say I have some amazing male teachers that I work with, but if you're looking at the numbers, we have a lot more women. So what are some things that you suggest that people can do to get into some of that personal realm of self-care?
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to share just within this talk 4 tips. So some of my favorite tips are, I'll just kind of run through them. So one of the easiest boundaries that you can set is time boundaries during your day. This can go one of 2 ways. You can either say, this is the time of day where I am going to stop work for the day. So if you're still virtual teaching, that means you're shutting down the work computer, closing it, you're done for the day, or you leave the school building by that time. And that works really well for some people. And then some people really like kind of looking at the inverse and saying, I know that for these hours of my day, I will not be touching school, right? And so
Mm.
trying to get really distinct with those boundaries of saying like, this is school time, this is rest time, can really help with the thinking during those times to say, okay, this is my school time. So you're more focused, you're more productive. This is my rest time. So you can actually rest during that time. Because a lot of, often I hear from teachers that they just feel this guilt that they should still be working during
Mm-hmm.
certain times. And it's not like choosing an end time will magically fix that, but it does help to say at this consistent time each day, whatever feels good for you. If it's overwhelming, just start with 30 minutes an hour or something like that from 4 to 5 p.m. Nothing school related. I don't do anything school related. And give yourself that time, a consistent time each day where you know that that's going to happen, as opposed to just like getting so tired at one point that you're like, all right, I'm just gonna,
Mm-hmm.
just gonna take a break for 5 minutes and then I'll come back. But no, like have like a chunk that is like your off time.
Yeah, so I will say that during the school year, one of the things that I started to do probably right around my third year, this is now my 12th year in the classroom, was
Mhm.
that my lunch was my lunch.
Mhm.
I work through lunch, like especially those like first years, just because there's so much to do, and sometimes I would skip lunch, I'd forget to eat. So that's the opposite of what I'm doing now with the emotional eating.
Mhm.
But then what happened was that like, and I stuck to that. That was my time to socialize. It was my time to kind of just be away, to walk out of the room, just to have a change. But with COVID, even when I'm in the school building, we're not allowed to congregate together. So I'm
Mhm.
going back into the habit. Well, I have time. I'm just going to work straight through. And then
Mhm.
I find myself coming home and I'm famished. So I'm grabbing things off the shelves. So it became a lot harder. Um, I will say that I was just introduced to it's a Chrome extension called Clockwise. And what it does is actually look at your calendar, and you can have your work and the personal one. And it actually finds how you're using time
Mhm.
and gives you like, this is your focus time. And what I loved about it is that they actually said, would you like to include lunch?
Oh
And
yeah, that's
you click
nice.
it. And so it's actually there so that you're like, hey, I need a break. It's
Mhm.
okay to break. Um, and, with teachers, we get our preps, but the preps are usually for meetings,
Right.
and getting your lessons done. So even though there's built in time breaks, they're not true breaks. It's up to us to make that.
Yeah.
Because if there's a little room and people know that you're available, they're going to find a way to scoop you up in that
Yeah.
little time. So
And I
those are
think
some great
that
ideas.
that's it, is like when you schedule it in, it looks like it's it's almost like an appointment to yourself. Like that
Mhm.
rest time that you schedule in doesn't mean I'm available. It means like that's your time to give your brain a break, your body a break, like just give yourself a moment away from all of it so that you can come back refreshed. Um, and so it really isn't, that's not like free time. It's
Right.
like you're doing something productive for your body and mind.
And I think it's important to put it throughout the day, because right now my rest time is either first thing in the morning or the last thing at night. And guess what gets chopped off if
Mm-hmm.
I want to sleep in or it was a long work day? I remove the things that I need the most, and that is just not good practice. So do
Yeah.
as I say, not as I do, right?
Yeah, well, and those sort of things happen sometimes, but that's why what I always like to say during coaching is like, let's make the plan. So let's say like whatever you say, I'm going to stop work by 5:30 every evening, like cut and dry. This is the rest of my time to focus on family time, making dinner with my spouse, like whatever you want during those last hours. And then there's, a day where grades are due and you end up working until 6. That doesn't, or 7 or whatever later than that. that doesn't mean like we beat ourselves up, that we failed,
Mm.
anything like that. Like there's going to be busier times and less busy times during the school year, but I think it's important to have those boundaries set in place and then allow for flexibility depending on what the school week looks like. Or maybe you see a school week that's coming that's different. So you say, okay, work is going to end by 7 on this week only, and then we can go back to 5. But just to start to know and create that trust with yourself that I am going to give myself planned breaks during the day, I
Mhm.
think is really important. Um, yeah.
All right, so what's number 2? I'm so
Number
excited.
number 2 is do something that sparks joy or peace each day. So this can be during that time off of work. I like to say this because again, self-care is a really big buzz term, and I think a lot of I hear oftentimes people say that they're too exhausted for self-care at the end of the day, and I think self-care has maybe become synonymous with like working out or like really intense
Or
exercise
getting a
or like
manicure or a
meal
massage.
prepping, like all those
Yeah.
perfect little Tupperwares or like something like, yeah, that does sound exhausting. And I think especially because this is my theory is that we have the like hashtag self-care and all the like social media influencers make it look perfect. It looks like a whole other job because that is their job, to be like the wellness, like self-care people. And so I like to define self care as whatever is going to make you feel good and in balance in body and mind. And so that's why I phrase it is as choose something each day that brings you a sense of joy and peace. Really, as teachers, we want to be focused on something that's going to help relieve stress from the body. So if that is movement, move in a way that you love. Don't do the P90X exercise thing because you feel like you have to. And that's like self-care and you hate it. I mean, if you love that, then do it. But if you hate it, then choose something that you really love to do at the end of the day that makes you feel joyful about moving your body. Or have your self-care time be that time that you're spending with your pet or your child or whatever, that thing that just like that person or animal or whatever that like lights up your life and makes you feel joyful. Have quality time set aside for that person. If it's a creative activity that just brings you so
Mhm.
much joy, make sure that that stays a part of your week. And yeah, so I think self-care, if you feel like it's just you're too drained to do self-care, I suggest that you're choosing the wrong activities for self-care. Choose something that lights you up, that makes you feel joy or peace or calm, and have that be your activity for self-care each day, because that is really going to be the most healing thing for you, and the most stress reducing thing for you.
And that is, people ask me like, "Oh, you're teaching full time, you tutor, like why are you doing this extra thing that's just for," I'm like, "Because of that." I
Mm,
leave these and this like I'm buzzing. It feels so good to talk to people who get it. And then to get the feedback and the emails to know that like you said something that resonated with someone else in Washington or
yeah.
Mexico City, and it's just like, yes, we're all in this together. And it's just made this very isolating year
Yes.
feel like it was worth something.
Mhm.
And so yeah, this is one of the things that's like my non-negotiable. I have a super supportive mother-in-law who watches my son and she loves it because they have an overnight and I get to be here and be committed. And this has been, I would say it's one thing that I've really been consistent with, and I hope that I can continue to do so. That said, I got to find the balance in the other places. But you
Yeah.
saying that to me right now, like this is my self care time. It really is. Like
Yeah.
this. It's inspiring for myself. I feel like I do this just for me, but I do know that there's others listening, and it makes it like all the better. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. And it's so it's so interesting, like self-care, like if you like bubble baths, like do it. But everyone says like bubble baths, eat a square of dark chocolate, get a massage. And those are like the stereotypes, but like it is the things that people do that if you're going by this definition of like it lights you up, it helps you, like it just, makes you feel whole as a person. If you go with that, it is so different from person to person what it is that counts as their self-care.
Yeah.
So I would definitely, especially, during the school year, if you do feel like you have limited time to take care of yourself and your needs, make sure you're focused on those things that really like make you feel good, in body and mind, and light you up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's tip number 2. Tip number
Good.
3, is to determine your own personal definition of success for the school year.
Hmm.
So this is a stress management strategy, that can be helpful to come back to, especially if there's something specific that is stressing you out. Thinking about what your definition of success is within that scenario. So we're using it in terms of the whole school year and coming up with something that feels really sustainable and meaningful and motivating for you, and coming back to that, because there's so much that happens during the school year, and
Mm-hmm.
things like your to-do list can get really cluttered, things getting asked of you, the email inbox, like there's so many things, and especially this year, so many new things coming at you. It can be really helpful to come back to this goal, this personal goal for yourself. And this what might change year to year. It might change, every couple of months or something like that. So you can kind of come back to it and decide what feels true for you, what feels motivating for you, what feels uh like the right path for you, so to speak. So if that's like an example, might be like for this year, your ultimate goal is to make students feel safe within your classroom. Like it could be as
Sure.
simple as that, right? Or whatever the case might be, but just to come back to that and say like, yes, there's so much of this other stuff happening, there might be other things that you need to do, but ultimately you're measuring your success by, at the end of the day, did my students feel safe within my classroom? Did I see a student smile today while they were reading, or whatever you want your definition of success to be? Have it be something that's going to make you feel good and that's attainable and achievable.
And it doesn't always have to be something that is data measured, that
Yes.
we have on a paper that gets like it can be a smile, and I
Mhm.
wish that we had like a data tracker for that,
Smiling,
because
yeah.
we forget those moments within a classroom, especially this year, since so many of the kids are behind a screen,
Yeah,
um, that we miss out on those little wins and that energy within the room when somebody says and something funny, and it's just like there's that vibe. That's something that has really been lacking, and I think that we're measuring our success only on whether they're turning their
yeah,
assignments in. And let me tell you, they're not turning them in.
yeah,
So, so it feels like I have to do more, because instead of saying like the situation is, not working, like I feel like we tend to put a lot on ourselves. Well, that just means I have to do it differently. And I believe that if it's not working because you've really tried, but this year nobody's experienced this. So if you know that you're doing what you can, right in the beginning of the year, we had an amazing speaker for the district, Cornelius Minor. He's a teacher up in New York. And he said, you don't like, he gave us permission that you don't have to give 100% every day, because it's not
mhm,
sustainable. That
mhm,
if you can only, today's a 70% day, it's okay. But to
yeah,
recognize that and to say, like, it's, because it's, you got to give 100% all the time. When you're dealing with so much, that's not always a reasonable thing. And so, you know, seeing the kids too, like maybe they can't give 100%
Right. Yeah.
today, and that's okay. And to have our how we measure success, like I think about that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
um Once again, it's funny, like you're very like focused on the interpersonal and the teacher, and I just can't help but to keep bringing it back to
Yeah.
the kids, like
Well, it's
the
because
energy's flowing down though, right? that's
yeah,
that's how it's supposed to work, and then it's supposed to flow back up. And
right.
we're right now we have a lot of barriers that are not allowing that movement. So I'm looking forward to a time where the flow is back.
Yeah. But it is interesting how often that, I mean, it's not interesting. It's because we're all human beings, right?
Right.
It's like what the students need is often what the teachers need. The tips that I give to the teachers, I often hear that is like, oh, this would be great to do with my students. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're all kind of in the same boat right now, especially with this year and all of the trauma, the global trauma that's been happening. We all need the same kinds of support right now, I feel
Yeah.
like. Yeah. I have one more tip.
Number 4.
Number 4 is to ask for help as much as you give it.
Hmm.
So this one is very, very challenging for a lot of teachers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of teachers are definitely givers. So if you feel like you never ask for help, just start by asking for one small thing a week and then work your way up from there. And it can be something so small, like asking somebody in your household to help you empty the dishwasher if you're always the one who empties the dishwasher or something. And just kind of work on making that a habit. I love this quote from Brene Brown, like blew my mind. Brene Brown is a speaker on vulnerability. I feel like a lot of people know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
But she said, let me see if I have this. Yes, I do have this quote. When you cannot accept and ask for help without self-judgment, then when you offer other people help, you are always doing so with judgment. And I always think about that. I'll say it
Huh.
one more time. When you
Okay.
cannot accept and ask for help without self-judgment, then when you offer other people help, you are always doing so with judgment. So I just like I was like, that's so true. If you feel like you're being so hard on yourself, I guess the idea behind it is essentially you shouldn't be so hard on yourself
Mm-hmm.
for asking other people for help. Like if you are thinking about yourself, oh, that they're going to think that I'm lazy or that I'm needy or that like whatever these things. Well, if you're offering other people help, are you thinking those things about that person? So there has to be like an, you know, even trade-off there. So,
Yeah.
and then there's also there's a rule of energy, right? So if you're expending all this energy helping other people, like that energy is then gone from you. So that's where burnout begins, unless we're accepting the help and energy back from others as well. So it is a very helpful little habit just to start to get more comfortable asking for help. And it's one of those things that it's a skill, and it is
Mm-hmm.
something that, as with anything, if you're really not used to doing it, start small and just try out with those little things that you can ask for help on that might make your week a little bit easier for you, and then move your way up from there. But the goal would be, again, law of transfer of energy would be to be asking for help as much
Right.
as you are giving help. Um, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's funny because I'm trying to imagine like how we can do this in better ways, right? And I do think I feel like every week I'm plugging it, but Clubhouse has been another place for me to kind of go and ask for help from other teachers who understand. Um, and there's a really wonderful community building there, where people know that they can kind of reach out and ask those types of questions. And I think that we do have a lot of tools and sources, and there's many different ways to ask for help. I think sometimes when we hear, oh, you better ask for help, that means that there's something wrong. And even as a teacher, I think when kids raise their hand, like, oh, well, it's because I don't know it, I'm dumb. There's all that judgment there too.
Yeah.
But help me is there's a lot. I remember having a trainer say, don't ask kids if they need help, ask them if they need support. And I was like, well, that's silly. It's the same thing, but it matters having that little word because
Yeah.
of the connotations that are with help. If you need help, there's something wrong. You cry for help when the house is burning. Help, right? But if I need support, if I need assistance, changing those little words, it seems silly, but it really matters,
No,
especially
it does.
for somebody that's struggling. There's resistance. There's they get defensive. No, 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 I'm fine. And it's like sometimes we have to be a little bit sneaky about how we're helping others, but then very intentional with how we're asking. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. I love that you bring that up because I am a big believer in the power of words as well. And if there are people out there who heard like asking for help, like I can't do that, it can be so powerful to say, oh, I'm gonna ask for support. I'm gonna ask for assistance, as you were saying, and see if those words feel more comfortable. I know with clients before, people who really struggle with incorporating regular exercise,
Hmm.
it might be because you hate the word, like you have all these built up negative connotations with exercise. So changing it to, I'm going to move my body today, and just thinking it in
Huh.
within different wordings can really help to have that motivation there, because you might not have any connotations with whatever word you're using.
Right.
Um, like if you have had really bad experiences running because you had to do drills and track in high school or whatever, but
Right.
you know that you know that you like it when you start, but you just can't get yourself to start. Maybe switching it to jogging or like whatever. That can
Hmm.
it can be really powerful, because it is definitely, once we start building negative connotations with a word, um, we aren't very motivated to do it. We want to motivate. We feel motivated to do those things that we feel positive associations with. Um,
Right.
yeah. So I love that you bring that up. I think that is
Yeah,
totally
that it
valid.
it, it definitely matters. I
Yeah.
and it's not hard to change a word.
No.
And then the more
And
you
it
do
can
it,
make
it
a really big
becomes
difference.
and it becomes a practice, and it becomes something, but it takes that being intentional. And I think that's where mindfulness starts. Like a few years back, I had at the district I was in, there was a big push for mindfulness. And it really helped me to realize, oh, I'm not okay. Like I thought I was gonna leave and feel, oh, it was like a yoga class, but it allowed me to take the time to realize that I felt heavy on the inside. I didn't feel okay because I know for myself, I tend to ramp up and get
Mhm.
busier the
Mhm.
more not okay I am. So I don't have to stop and think about it. I
Mhm.
don't want to stop and think about it. That's not fun. Right. So
Yeah.
we avoid it, but it's that intentionality of knowing that, to kind of stop and say, what do I need? And if you don't stop and think about that and reflect, like I have in my, self-care, the, my schedule that every morning I'm going to either journal or meditate, and
Mhm.
I skip it. I know I do because I know that it's going to be hard but now I'm thinking maybe don't do it first thing in the morning to start your day if I know that that is something that, could bring up feelings.
Yeah.
Um and I think that teachers, oh, you need to be happy and positive. Someone wrote here on the Facebook Live, the emotional exhaustion. You have to put on a happy face and we're positive even when
Yeah.
things are terrible. Um, Sometimes it's okay to say, hey, like I had a day with my students. I said, I'm having a really hard day. I just got some really tough news. Um, and I couldn't hold it together. I was like, I'm gonna give you your assignment and I'm just going to turn the video off and my microphone off. And if you need me, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a student, you know, mail me and be like, hey, are you okay? But then also like, thank you for doing that because I've had a rough day too. And I feel like I can't express that. And so it opened up a dialogue because I showed them that now it's high school too. So it was a little bit more appropriate, I guess. But like, I think it's taken me until now to realize that it's okay to not be happy all the time,
Mm-hmm.
that being human is having a range of emotions, and that if we don't feel them, they just come out in sickness or they come out in another
Yeah.
way. They will always come out, even if we avoid
Yeah.
them for years, it'll come out in some way. And I think that too, especially in our communities of diversity, you know, culturally, they've had to repress feelings and they're not allowed to express themselves. So I think we also need to be careful and aware too when we're bringing some of these ideas into the classroom. If we're like, oh, I learned that it worked for me, you have to be aware that that doesn't always work for everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is some, you know, those are some mistakes that I think we made with the mindfulness. We did it for the teachers and then we tried to do it for all the students.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them just weren't there yet. And I think that that's important too, that this is a very individualized process.
Yes.
Um, and that, you know, I think having, you know, school districts tend to bring in a speaker and okay, we had a speaker and you're positive and you have self-care and we can go to the data now. Um, it's continuous, it's constant, and it's a journey, which is why I actually like the whole adventure coaching. I kind of like that because it's the
Yeah.
whole idea.
Yeah.
But the teacher wellness center, I think, will work a little bit better with SEO. But
Yes.
yeah, for sure. But okay, so how can people get in touch with you? How can they be a part of your the services that you provide?
Yeah. So if you want to reach me directly, the email would be emily@teacherwellnesscenter.com. On Facebook, I have a beautiful Facebook group called Teachers Beat Burnout. So I can share the link with you
Hmm.
to that.
Yeah.
But that's just it's a public Facebook group with teachers where there's tips daily about that can help you with wellness during the school year. And then on that page as well, there's also a link to a free resource called the Healthy Teacher Self-Care Planner, which is a planner to help encourage you to plan in to each and every day something for your mental and physical well-being. The idea is that it's a tool to help make sure that
I have it
ooh,
up. So,
oh, great. Ah, yes,
yes.
there it is. So it's meant to help, and there I am. It's meant to help with making sure that that is something that's getting planned into your day. Is yes,
So this is the website. So, right, the teacherwellnesscenter.com.
yeah, just
And
teacherwellnesscenter.com, and then that would be
okay.
Beat Burnout is the Facebook group right on that
Awesome. So
homepage.
everything is right here. For all of our subscribers, I will make sure that all of the links are available to you. Um, I am really working on, in my spare time, working on getting a website up so that all of this stuff is retrievable. Our first step right now is taking a lot of our YouTube videos because everything is recorded. We're going to take it from the Learning Revolution site, and actually ECEL is going to have its own page, just so that and people who are looking for specific content can find it. And then on there will also be connections so that you can reach Emily and all of our other guests. So is there any final words that you have? That was a very quick hour.
Yeah, I just want to thank you again for having me on here. For anybody who's watching or watching the playback, I hope that you leave just knowing that your needs are important, and that rest and taking time for yourself is not only okay, but it is necessary. It's a necessary part of being human. Because gosh darn it, we have these human bodies that need rest. So I
Ain't
just want
that
to
the
kind of
truth?
leave with that.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. And just thank you so much for your time and what you're doing. And I really hope that, this becomes something that every district has access to.
I hope so too. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be incredible?
Mm-hmm.
So we might need to talk a little bit more off screen because I've had a ton of ideas. So it's just I really feel like until we really focus on the individual, the system can't change. We can do as much as we can in our small sections, but I think that's how we change the bigger system. And that's the only way that it really has worked is in
Mm-hmm.
small communities. And now we have the
Mm-hmm.
ability to have communities that are across the globe at a click of a button. So whether that's through Zoom or Clubhouse or Facebook, um, there's at least a feeling now that we're not alone. And that in
Yeah.
itself is a beautiful thing.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you.